Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite soccer podcast. I am back, ready to give you guys some more soccer news. Obviously, what else would you be doing here? Once again, we got really exciting stuff going on throughout the weekend. We got Serie A coming back. We got Premier League with their second match week. Same thing for La Liga. Of course, we still don't got no Barcelona, Sevilla playing because they got to catch up with their cup matches. But again, we got a lot of interesting things to talk about today. So let's just get right into what we're going to be talking about in today's show. With the first segment, going to be talking about the Premier League. We already know, most exciting league in the world. We're going to be just recapping match week 2. In the second part of the show, I'm going to be recapping match week 1 of Serie A. And if we have time, I might add in some top transfer news. And then, of course, in the third part of the show, I'm going to be talking about the La Liga season so far, since we're already 2 games in for a couple teams. I just want to talk about the games that have happened so far and then maybe give an update on the table. And of course, in the last part of the show, I got a brand new top 10 series for you guys. This time I'm going to be talking about the top 10 wonder kids in the world. Now, let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about the Premier League match Week 2 recap. Starting with Everton versus West Bromwich. And in this game, once again, Everton just absolutely dominating their opponent. Although West Bromwich did come in and start off pretty well. They got a 10-minute goal with by Diangana, and they were looking pretty solid. Even with Everton going back-to-back goals by Calvert-Lewin and James Rodriguez, who has been absolutely ridiculous for Everton. That signing could possibly be, depending on what goes on with Chelsea, that James signing, underrated as heck. To be able to get that guy, who was unwanted from Real Madrid, and him having such a huge impact for Everton. Obviously starting the season off 2-0. I haven't mentioned it, but they ultimately defeated West Brom 5-2 in this matchup. And, they looked really good. They did get a red, well, not Everton, but West Brom did have a Gibbs red card given to them late in the first half, which certainly didn't help things. However, to start the second half, they scored a goal. Matías Pereira, who has been West Brom's best player so far this season, obviously just 2 games in, but he has been their best player, scored an opening goal in the second half. Of course, that was as close as they got, because then in the span of 12 minutes, Michael Keane and then 2 Calvert-Lewin goals made it 5-2. Just huge game for Everton. Just to be able to come out and even though it wasn't extremely convincing. They did have an overwhelming 17 shots to West Brom's 6, 90% pass percentage to West Brom's 78%. And they were just like all over them in the final third. But it wasn't the usual. It wasn't as clean of a performance as they had last week. And I guess, and obviously West Brom is not, one of the top-notch teams. So they have yet to face off against one of those teams, because last week they took on, who would they take on? What am I talking about? They took on Tottenham last week. But again, Tottenham's, I don't know. Even though Tottenham looked good this week, which we'll talk about very soon, I don't have a lot of faith in them. So, I mean, to say you've beaten Tottenham in this isn't really that big of a deal, even though they are looking pretty good with those additions of Bale and Reguilon. We'll just have to wait to see on that one. But yes, Everton come out on top against West Brom 5-2, and you get that hat trick from Calvert-Lewin, who easily is the man of the match. But I'll tell you what, one player that does not get talked about very often, even though he's clearly one of the top players on their team, Richarlison. He has not been able to get a goal yet, but man, is this guy absolutely killing it. He got 2 assists in this match and was a big part of their win against Tottenham. I've already gone into detail about that in my last episode, but I mean, I'm very impressed with what Richarlison has done for Everton so far this season. But that's Everton looking good so far, 2-0. Now next we have probably the game of the week from Leeds United once again. But this time they came out on top, as it was a battle of the two recently promoted sides of Leeds United versus Fulham. And it ended 4-3, this time luckily in Leeds United's side. Leeds United favor with them coming out on top. But I'll tell you what, I mean, this was a pretty even matchup. I mean, the teams had even possession. Fulham actually had more shots, 14 to Leeds United 10, but Leeds United had 7 on target compared to 6 from Fulham. Their pass percentage wasn't as good. The aerials were equal. I mean, for the most part, this was a pretty even matchup. The only place I would actually say, I actually felt like Fulham was even better on defense in this game. But the individual quality from Leeds United up top with Bamford, Helder Costa, my bad. Jack Harrison, who I said those were 2 guys that, they were very important to their success last season in the championship, and to be able to bring them back was huge. Of course, getting Rodrigo, the club's record signing, was big. And then obviously Matthias Klick, I believe that's how you say his name. He had a goal in this one as well. And this was just a back-and-forth battle. Leeds United have had to, really fight in this one. But they did go up on a 4-1 lead really early in that first quarter, really early in that second half, with 2 goals, one from Bamford, one from Costa, his second of the match. But Fulham were not going away. They scored 2 goals pretty much in the span of 5 minutes. Really, really impressive. One from Reed, one from Mitrovic, which was his second of the game for Mitrovic, who had a penalty in the first half. And I was really expecting this to actually be a draw, because it was really, really close for Fulham. They had a lot of chances late in that game. They just couldn't get in the back of the net. And Leeds United get their 3 points. Honestly, a much-deserved 3 points, because after what the showing they had against Liverpool last week, and now giving us another 4-3 wild game this week, I mean, they deserve to have 3 points. Come on. And plus, I had them mid-table, so I really wanted them to have 3 points. So next we have Crystal Palace versus Manchester United. I mean, this was a surprise, to say the least, with Crystal Palace coming out on top 3-1. And they got off to a quick start. A 7th-minute goal from Townsend. And it was a pretty solid team goal. But let me tell you what, man. I had some faith in what's his name? Lindelof. Heading into this season. But my God, did he have a bad game. 2 of those goals were his fault. I mean, I feel like that first one that Schlupp was bringing. I don't know if you say his name like that, but Schlupp was bringing it up on the left side, and I feel like Lindelof could have easily tackled that away and just made it have like a corner kick, but instead he kind of played a little lazy on it, and it went across the face of the goal, and Townsend was there to slot it home. And of course, that's how, just like that. I mean, it doesn't really take much more than that for you to go down 1-0. But yeah, man, it's just Manchester United. They have a lot of problems. They had 76% possession, so they were able to keep possession. But I mean, even with that much possession, they only had 3 more shots than Crystal Palace. And their pass percentage, I mean, it was solid. It had 86% to Crystal Palace 61%. But for some reason, they just couldn't. I don't know. They couldn't get the connection in the final third and really make a goal. Of course, the new signing Donny van de Beek got his first goal for Manchester United, which is huge in his debut. You love to see it, but man, does that team have problems? Major problems. Wilfried Zaha got 2 goals late in the game. One in the 74th minute, which was a penalty kick, rightfully deserved, and another one at the end of the match, which was again another defensive mistake by Lindelof to, not be able to stop Zaha. And I mean, I know Zaha's quick, but he had him there, and for him to get out like strength in that situation, that can't happen. I mean, he's literally like twice the size of Zaha, and I mean, I'm not a Manchester United fan, if maybe people are thinking that way because of the way I'm talking, but it's just with the expectations coming into the season and the way that I was talking about Crystal Palace, it just makes me look bad, honestly, because it's like I didn't expect Crystal Palace to look this good in the first game, or at least this game against Manchester United, but I mean, Crystal Palace 2 wins to start the season. That's huge. That's really, really big. And one thing I have to shout out in this game is Wilfried Zaha getting that captain's band. You could tell it really meant a lot to him, because that was the first time in his Crystal Palace, I think his professional career, that he was named captain, and he really took that to heart. That's what you like to see from your players, that they care about wanting to be out there leading your group, and that he did. So Crystal Palace, a well-deserved 3-1 victory over Manchester United, and Manchester United have questions. Can old Gunnar Solskjaer really lead this group? I mean, I know last year it started off bad, but I mean, you cannot have that. You just can't have this kind of start when you bring in guys that you've brought in, and I mean, it's not like they've made any big time changes. I mean, they only brought in Van de Beek, and he came off the bench to score. But you got Bruno Fernandes for a full season. You got Daniel James. You got Anthony Martial. You got Rashford. You got a lot of talent on that squad. You cannot be falling behind. And I know they've only played 1 game. This is their first game in the in the Premier League. But I mean, some teams that are expected to be above them are already on fast starts. Manchester City won their first game. Arsenal have won both of their their first 2 games. Same thing with Everton. Same thing with Leicester. Obviously, same thing with Liverpool. I mean, no one expected them to catch them. But yeah, man, they need to shore up a few things. Maybe more than just a few. Next, we have Arsenal versus West Ham United. And this one I actually watched the whole entire time. And Arsenal looked pretty solid. Not as dominant as they looked in their first game. Versus who did they play in that first game? I'm sorry, I'm checking it out for you guys. Against Fulham, obviously. I mean, well, Fulham, being that relegated side, no one really expected them to come out as hot as they did. But still, they came out with a 2-1 victory, getting a goal at the end of the game by Nikitia. And it was a really nice combination with Ceballos finding him inside. But overall, you just need to see more from Arsenal. Like you just do. It's they only had 7 shots compared to West Ham's 14. So the defense, I mean, even though West Ham only had 3 of those on target, you know, to be able to get that many shots off with, you know, such little possession, it does not bode well for them. Especially, you know, but they did what they had to do. They got their, you know, first 2 wins, but they need to play better if they are expected to, you know, be in the top 6 this year. I mean, or even top 5. You know, they have the talent. They got a lot of really solid players on their squad. You know, you got Lacazette, you got obviously Aubameyang, Xhaka, Saka, who you're going to be hearing pretty soon in this show. I like Bellerin. I probably said that name terrible. Bellerin, I know how to say it. And Willian, the guy they just recently added. So they got some solid guys, and obviously bringing in Gabriel really makes a difference in the back, but there are definitely some leaks there, and they need to figure that out before they start taking on some bigger competition, because this is just not going to cut it. Next, we have Tottenham versus Southampton, and although this was a 5-2 finish for Tottenham, and I'll tell you what, Song came out with 4 goals in this game. I mean, my goodness, hats off to him to get 4 goals, all of them. No, he got 1 right before halftime, and then 3 in the second half, and 3 of those were all 4 of those were assists from Kane. So that was huge. And then Kane getting the goal at the end. So to have a goal and 4 assists, I mean, it was huge nights or huge days. Huge games, whatever, from their top players. But as a team, they still got issues, man. I mean, it's not even looking at the stats, although the stats are glaring. They had 47% possession against Southampton, and Southampton were able to get 2 goals on them. One early in the game where they got off to a 1-0 start by Danny Ings, and then a penalty kick from Danny Ings. So, you know, good on Danny to be able to get back, you know, get on the score sheet after a slow start to this Premier League season. But, man, Tottenham, even though it's 5-2 finish, I mean, they just have so much more quality than Southampton. If they would have even drew this game, it would have been a, you know, really, really bad look on their part. But to get 9 shots to Southampton's 14, I don't know. It's just, and 72% pass percentage to Southampton's 77%. I don't know. It's just some things in there that I just do not like from Tottenham, and it just looks like they're unorganized all the time. Every single time you watch them, they just look unorganized. And if they're trying to, I just can't expect. I mean, yes, they're bringing in Bale, and he didn't. Did he play in this game? I don't think he played in this game. He did not. He did not play in this game. Obviously, they'll be expected. He'll be expected soon. Same thing with Reguilon, who will, you know, definitely make a difference. But, man, it's just, 2 guys are not going to change the culture that you're looking at on the field. And that's just a fact. But Tottenham did what they had to do, getting that 5-2 win and looking, you know, at least their individual quality looks good. Like, you know, they have the talent, but that's something we've already known. The thing that we have always said about Tottenham, or at least what I've been thinking about Tottenham for a while, is can they play as a team? Can they, you know, make the adjustments at halftime to really make a difference? And in this game they did, but against a team like Southampton that I'm not expecting, you know, to have as big a season as they did last year, you know, they're going to need some big-time performances from Danny Ings, which they did in this game, but the defense looks really bad. Like, we'll just have to see what Tottenham has to do later on. Next, we have my surprise of the season, which I'm expecting to have big-time performances. Brighton winning 3-0, or 3-0, as they say, versus Newcastle. Brighton looked pretty solid in this game. I mean, defense was good. They only allowed 6 shots on 0 on target of Newcastle. Had 53% possession. Weren't absolutely dominant, but again, they just needed a victory here. Newcastle getting a victory in their first game. We're coming in here trying to get a second in a row and you know, have a pretty solid start for, you know, what they're hoping is another season in the top flight, or just avoiding relegation. But Brighton did what they had to do. They got their victory 3-0, making quick work of Newcastle, and a lot of that has to do with what Maupay did in the beginning of the game. First 7 minutes, they're already up 2-0. A penalty kick from Maupay, and then, of course, the goal with the assist from Trossard, probably how you say his name. And then he also got an assist at the end of the game. So, obviously, man of the match has to go to Maupay. I mean, the way he was just working it for them and just getting every guy in line and just overall just playing better than the other team. And on top of that, the fact that they had a red card late in the game, it was late in the game, though, so it wasn't really that big of a difference from Bissouma. It wasn't really going to tilt the game at that point, but yeah, Brighton did what they had to do. Next, we had the game I was looking forward to big time in this week, but it completely underperformed, was Liverpool versus Chelsea. Liverpool coming out on top 2-0, and my goodness, can they get rid of Kepa? I mean, I know that they don't really have a choice because, Frank Lampard just has to use him and is doing his best not to really put him out there in terms of talking bad about him. But man, this kid's terrible. He's lost all of his confidence, and you can just tell the way he plays very cautious. He's not trying to, the way he was playing in La Liga is completely different. The way that he was playing to make him the highest paid goalkeeper in the world is nowhere near the way he's playing right now. And Andres Christensen, I understand, he had to try to make a play, but not like that. And in the end, the way I look at it, Christensen probably shouldn't be their starter. He won't be once Thiago Silva comes in. But the reason he makes a play like that is because there's distrust between goalkeeper and team. I feel like that's the only way I can really look at it. I know, obviously, Christensen still shouldn't have made that decision, but the fact that he feels that he has to in order to really, save his goalkeeper from an obvious goal, I guess, in his opinion, pretty much destroyed what should have been a great second half. Because up until that point, it was 0-0. Liverpool weren't able to really get much going against Chelsea. And Chelsea were, pretty doing okay. Not getting many shots, but overall, we're still playing solid. They had 85% possession, 85% pass succession, of almost about 500 passes in the game. But Liverpool were just too much quality. And you can tell in this game that Liverpool were just that much better. And they made quick work of Chelsea in that second half with the man down. They did what they had to do. They took care of business when they needed to. And Mane getting those 2 goals, that really nice header with the cross from Firmino to start the scoring. And then, of course, stealing that ball from Kepa, who just doesn't even know what he's doing out there anymore, to slot home the second goal and pretty much call this one and get it done with. Chelsea did have a chance to get back with a penalty kick in the 75th minute, but Alisson saved it with Jorginho trying to do a Bruno Fernandes, right before his little skip to my Lou, and it just did not work. So Chelsea fall in this one, lose their first game of the season, and Liverpool, on the other hand, win their first 2 games of a title defense. Now, next and last, we got Leicester City defeating Burnley 4-2. Leicester, this wasn't as good of a performance as we saw last week. I know they didn't take on that good of a opponent last week. Let me just look this back up. Let me just look real quick. Yeah, they took on West Brom, obviously newly promoted side West Brom. So obviously they were expected to be way better there, and they did. They won 3-0, did what they had to do. This game winning 4-2. I expected more from them, but still, you do what you have to do. Win 4-2. Had 68% possession, still got outshot though, and that's where I'm kind of worried. They had 14 shots to Burnley's 16, and the pass percentage was good. They had 85% pass percentage to Burnley's 68%. It's just that the activity of Burnley was obviously there. They had way more aerials, way more clearances. The tackles were pretty even, but Burnley were fighting. But in the end, Leicester just had that quality at the end that they needed to really get over the top. But, in the end, when you score an own goal on yourself to make it 2-1, and you're just trying to get back in this game, that doesn't help you. So, with that one, yes, Leicester City win 4-2 and are now 2-0 to start their Premier League season, and looking good for a top 6 finish. I mean, obviously we got to keep, looking at what they're doing. They haven't really taken on any big-time competition, so we'll see what they can do next week when they take on Manchester City. That's going to be a big one to watch. So that's going to wrap it up for my Bundesliga Premier League match week 2 recap. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about Serie A and, just recapping those games. And, of course, maybe some transfer news. Stick around.
Are you looking to get your college football fixed? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I talked about match week 2 of the Premier League and just recapped all the games that occurred. And now we're going to be talking about the opening week of Serie A, the most exciting season or most exciting league from last season. And there was still some really exciting games this week. I mean, it kind of underperformed in my opinion, for some teams. I mean, Juventus looked really good against Sampdoria. But let me not get too ahead of myself. Let's just get right into it. And that's actually the first game we're going to be talking about. With Juventus beating Sampdoria 3-0. They were dominant in this game, even though they didn't really take charge in the first half. Kulusevski did look really, really nice. I mean, this kid, my goodness, at 20 years old is doing things that I never could have imagined. But he is really good. I mean, we knew they were getting a really, really solid player when he was coming in back from loan when he was with I believe it was with Udinese last year. But overall, I mean, this game was very solid from Juventus' part. I do have to give a shout out to Weston McKennie, who did start this game alongside Rabiot in the center midfield position. And, I mean, he played it well. I mean, he did what he had to do and, played possession well, went for balls on defense that, were necessary. Didn't really take any unnecessary risks, which is what you usually expect from a young player. But he didn't look out of, what should I say? Like, he didn't look, out of place. He looked like he was in a really good spot. And I know he's not usually going to get these starting positions when you get some guys back from injury, and probably when maybe when you get back Dybala, you probably won't be seeing him too much. But he didn't give Pirlo, who did get his first win as a manager in his first game, which hats off to him. That's awesome. Weston McKennie did not show Pirlo any reason not to trust him, and I think that's great. Excellent debut from him. But this game was all about that front two. Ronaldo, Kulusevski, both got a goal in this game. Bonucci got a goal, which is great. But, man, those two up front, Ronaldo, obviously, I don't even have to talk about him. One of the GOATs of this game. But him alongside Kulusevski, and then when you bring in Dybala, he's probably going to play that center attacking midfielding position. And, man, that's going to be scary. I know I have high hopes for Inter to, come into this season and play well and challenge Juve, but with Kulusevski just looking so good in his first game, and he just keeps chipping away. He was obviously like a man amongst boys last season when he was on loan, and he was just 19 and just another season of experience, and now playing alongside one of the best players in the world. There's no doubt in my mind that he is going to just improve and be one of the best players in Serie A this season. In terms of the stats, Juventus just dominated this game. They were even though they had way more possession and Sampdoria had more opportunities on defense to really change the game. Juve still had more tackles. They had more aerials, more interceptions. They were a little bit more aggressive. They did have 6 more fouls than Sampdoria, but that's just it. They pretty much placed their will or exerted their will onto this game. And so they start off their title defense with another win. Same old for Juve. So next we have Napoli defeating Parma 2-0. We got some pretty solid we got some pretty good games from Insigne, Mertens. Lozano looked pretty good as well, but it's just those same two guys that just keep on chipping away for Napoli, keep doing their thing for them, and overall they just looked way better than Parma. 61% possession, 17 shots, 6 on target to Parma's 6 shots and 2 on target. The pass percentage was pretty good for Parma. They had 85% on their 406 passes. And man, were they tossing the ball around. They were just trying to get it out of their half. They had 58 long balls, just trying to do whatever they can to, disrupt Napoli. And they did have more interceptions. They did have more clearances, more fouls to try to get Napoli out of this game. But it clearly didn't work because Napoli, did what they had to do. Even though they went into halftime at 0-0, made the adjustments at the half, and Mertens scored in the 63rd minute, and then you had Insigne in the 77th. Just same old work for Napoli. And they start the season off well. I don't expect it to be the same when they take on tougher competition because Parma, if I'm not mistaken, they were recently promoted, if I'm not mistaken. So Napoli did what they had to do against a weaker side, and we'll see what they can do next week. Next, we have Fiorentina versus Torino, and Fiorentina is one of my favorite teams in Serie A. I feel like they have a lot of good talent on their squad. I love what's his name? Chiesa. Federico Chiesa. I think he's a big time player in Serie A. And I feel like I'm really glad he stayed. And when you combine that with Ribéry now there, he's been there, but he was injured towards the end of last season. And now you're going to have them kind of combining. But Gaetano Castrovilli is the one that came through with the goal in this game. Other than that, Torino actually played pretty solidly in terms of, making sure that they had Fiorentina feel them. 24 tackles to Fiorentina's 13, 26 clearances to Fiorentina's 7. So they did what they had to do in this game to try to stay in it, try to get that draw. But they just don't have that type of ability to just get goals up front. You got Simone Zaza and Andrea Bellotti, but they don't have the type of guys. And I do like Carol Linetti. Bringing in Carol Linetti is a pretty solid pickup, even though he got a yellow card in this game. They just don't have those playmakers behind them to really get them into the right positions. But again, they have a solid goalkeeper, and he made his presence felt. Those 5 shots on target from Fiorentina did not, only one got through. And Sirigu is one of the better goalkeepers, at least one of the better veteran goalkeepers in the league. But, yeah, to start the season off, Torino lose 1-0 to Fiorentina, and I am going to be looking out for Fiorentina and what they have to offer this season. Don't be surprised if they are one of the top 5, top 6 teams this year. But this first game indication makes me feel like I'm maybe thinking a little too high on them. But again, there's still a lot of games to play. So that's how we finished that one off. Next, we have Genoa taking on newly promoted side Crotone and taking care of business, beating them 4-1. Crotone actually played pretty solid in this game. They had 13 shots to Genoa's 14. The goalkeeper, man. I mean, they had 6 shots on target. 4 of them got through. That is not a good performance, not something you want to see from your goalkeeper. What was his name? Alex Cordaz. I mean, that did not look good for them to start the game, but for Genoa, I mean, you got goals from Destro, Pandev, Zabacosta, and you even got a goal from your sub, Piaka, or Jaka, probably how you say it. But either way, 4-1, looking very, very solid, but I like what I saw from Crotone. I mean, they had more possession. The pass percentages were pretty even. It's just that the defense just wasn't there. They had only 4 clearances, 6 interceptions to Genoa's 15 clearances and 21 interceptions. So the biggest difference here was obviously the defense. And yeah, Crotone need to clear those things up in order to really make a difference and possibly stay in Serie A, because their offense, I don't like it I don't like in terms of the offense to get goal production on a consistent basis. And Genoa is not one of the better teams in Serie A. I had them as a mid-table team coming up this season, and if Crotone wants to stay in the top flight, their defense needs to play better. Next, we have AC Milan defeating Bologna 2-0. And this is easily my favorite player of all time was in this game and got a goal. 2 goals. Zlatan Ibrahimovic just doing what he does best, man. Getting goals, and just he ages like a fine wine. Never, he never looks bad. I mean, he obviously gets slower, but his technical ability and just, how good he is with the ball at his feet is just something to watch. And I don't think AC Milan's really going to make a huge leap this season, but they did win this game. They got those 2 goals from Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who's going to be huge this season. Obviously, Hakan Kahagnoglu, their attacking midfielder, is going to be big time this season. They're going to need him. And, of course, Theo Hernandez, one of the best left backs in the world, is also another big time player that they'll need. And they pretty much got what they needed in this game to get over Bologna, who is not one of the better teams. Again, I had them probably as another mid-table team. But, so they got AC Milan got 58% possession, 17 shots to Bologna's 13. Not what you like to see, especially when they only had 5 on target to Bologna's 4. And Bologna were really giving it to them. They had 20 fouls in this game to AC Milan's 13. So they were really, really trying to make them feel them, and they did. But AC Milan came out on top 2-0 and are looking pretty solid heading into week 2. Who are they taking on in week 2? Let me check this out real quick. AC Milan go up against Crotone next week. So, and then they get Spezia Calcio. So they got a pretty favorable start to their season, and I don't know, maybe they could make some noise. I mean, because it doesn't really matter who you face. If you get the 3 points, you get the 3 points. Of course, then they take on Inter Milan and then Roma. So they obviously, are going to have some tough competition after that. But if they can get off to 3 wins to start the season, get some really good performances from their top players, like the ones I recently mentioned, I mean, they can make some noise. I mean, the confidence is everything in this game. Form is everything in this game. And if your team's playing well, going into a big-time game against obviously one of your biggest rivals, anything can happen. Next, we have Sassuolo defeating Cagliari. Drawing against Cagliari 1-1. And in this game, it looked pretty even, honestly, even though Sassuolo are clearly the better side overall. Cagliari just, what am I going to say here? They're dodging bullets, I guess I would say. I mean, Sassuolo did what they needed to do in terms of getting more possession, getting way more shots. They had 33 shots to Cagliari's 8. But Cagliari were making them, feel them. They had 18 fouls to Sassuolo's 9, 15 interceptions to their 8, 20 clearances to their 9, and 12 aerials to their 9. So they were doing what they needed to do defensively. But Sassuolo just had way more possession, But to come out with a 1-1 draw in this game, I mean, it does not look good on Sassuolo's part. I mean, they have way more quality up top with Caputo, Berardi, and Locatelli. They needed to do more in this game. They needed to come out with a victory, just plain and simple. You can't have 33 shots to the opposing team's 8 and have a 1-1 draw. That just 9 on target. I mean, they were just flinging it out there. They were doing whatever they wanted, but they just couldn't put it in the back of the net. And you have to credit the goalkeeper, Cragno. You have to credit him. I mean, they only, out of those 9 shots on target, he allowed just 1. That's big. That's big time. So, honestly, even though it's not very convincing for Cagliari because, they escaped with a 1-1 draw, it's still a very, very good, at least to get a point, So, very strong start for Cagliari. Some questions for Sassuolo, but they looked good. They just need to get better in the final third. So, 1-1 draw. Next, we had Verona tying scoreless draw with Roma 0-0. I hate those. That's why it's the last one here. Verona had 40% possession to Roma 60%. And kind of like Sassuolo, Roma had 21 shots to Verona's 8, but they only had 4 on target. I mean, we knew Roma weren't that good of an offensive team. I mean, they weren't good at all. Wait, what am I talking about here? Oh my goodness. Why does it say 3-0? What am I looking at here? Okay. For some reason, what I'm looking at right now is that Hellas Verona won 3-0 against Roma, but that is clearly false. Do not know why it says that. They did not get 3 goals. They did not get 3 goals, guys. I know what I'm talking about. They did not get 3 goals. But anyways, they did, Roma did what they needed to do in order to try to get a victory in this game. And it just did not work out for them. 77% pass succession to 68% for Verona. Even on defense, they were pretty solid. They had 11 clearances, even though Verona had 18, because obviously they had a lot more work to do. But Roma needed to get a victory here, and they just didn't. 0-0 draw, and that is a bad start for Roma in this game. Defensively, you like it because Roma has always been seen as a really bad defensive team, even though last year they had improvements. Though they did not get Smalling back, which is going to hurt them in the long run, in my opinion. Obviously, they did everything they could to try to get him, but it just did not work out for them. So, and same thing with Nainggolan. Not being able to get Nainggolan back is a big-time loss. So, even though I was kind of high on Roma, but that was only if they were able to get Nainggolan and Smalling. I see them as a mid-table team now this year. And, that's pretty much probably where they're going to end up. So, We do have a few minutes left here in the segment, so I do want to get into some top transfer news with Tottenham opening talks with Inter Milan for defender Milan Skriniar. They obviously need to try to find a replacement for, I believe they're missing for Tongan now. Yeah, I believe that's who they're missing. And the problem is that Inter Milan is asking for 55 million euros. That is a lot of money for a player who kind of fell out with Antoine Conte, and it just does not. I just don't see that possibly happening. I see him staying in Inter and probably playing out the season. Hopefully he can build up that value again. But Tottenham are obviously trying to revamp what's looking like a mess over there. Leeds United have reached an agreement with Real Sociedad for center back Diego Llorente. Really big time center back last season for Real Sociedad. Big time reason why they were able to do so well in La Liga last year. And for Leeds United to get him, with them giving up 7 goals in their first 2 games, is a big time addition and will do good for the newly promoted Premier League side. Ajax fullback Sergino Dest is being targeted by Barcelona as they make an 18 million euro bid for him. I love this move. However, I feel like it'll just be like Barcelona trying to add more to their, already huge time treasure trove of young, talented prospects that they'll probably just loan out. And I mean, I feel like Sergino Dest should stay in Ajax for another season. Obviously, I have a little invested into this because he's a USA national player. And for him to get a lot of playing time, that's the most important part now. Big time move for Chelsea, getting Eduard Mendy for 22 million euros. And that was so needed, especially after the game we were recently talking about with Kepa making huge mistakes. And I mean, that is going to be their starting goalkeeper. I know that Frank Lampard was trying not to say it during the press conference at the end of the game, but we know what's going to happen. I mean, Mendy has proven it in Liga, and Kepa has just fallen apart in Chelsea. So Eduard Mendy now with Chelsea, and that's probably going to be the last move that they make. I mean, I'd be surprised if they make any more. I mean, how much money do they have? But that's probably going to end one of the best transfer windows I've ever seen since being a soccer fan. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, I'm going to be discussing the La Liga season so far. Make sure you guys come back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last segment, if you missed it, we talked about Serie A opening up their season and just, recap the games. And of course, at the end, gave you a little bit of the top transfer news going on in the world. And now we're going to be talking about La Liga and, pretty much just their season so far, since they've already had 2 games go through, and I haven't talked about them so far. So I just want to quickly go through the games and, just talk about how they're going so far, how they're playing so far. So with match week 1, we've obviously, we're not able to get any Barcelona-Real Madrid matches, as they are currently trying to keep up with their, catch up with their cup matches. So we're going to start off with Valencia versus Levante, with Valencia coming out on top 4-2 and looking pretty dominant in this game. I wasn't really expecting this from them. They did get 2 goals from their substitute, Manu Vallejo, who came on for Lee Kang-in, who you're going to be hearing pretty soon in this game. But I don't know. I don't know really what to think about this game because, they got some solid performances throughout their lineup. Gabriel Paulista got a goal early in the game. Same thing with Gomez right before halftime, both being assisted by Lee Kang-in. But they didn't really dominate this game, I should say. Because at the end, they gave up a goal in the first minute to Morales, and then Morales doubled his goal tally with a goal in the 36th minute. The thing is, at least Valencia were able to answer with each goal. But I don't know. They didn't have as much possession. They didn't have as many shots. Their pass percentage was worse, and they had to work very hard on the defensive end. They had 17 tackles to Levante's 6, 16 clearances to Levante's 9, 13 interceptions to Levante's 7. So they were obviously, working out of their back a lot. And they don't have the individual quality to really get them over the hump in most of these games. They did have Guedes back, and, that's going to be huge for their success this season, who, as he was injured for most of last season. And same thing for Jose Gaya at left back. He's going to be huge for them. But I don't know. I just don't have a lot of faith in Valencia. Just trying to be plain and simple. But they did get this victory. And, to start off their season with a win, that's big. Especially after the train wreck last season and what's looking like a rebuild coming up in the future. You got to give the fans something to look forward to. So next we have Osasuna versus Cadiz, the newly promoted side. Osasuna took care of business, defeating them 2-0. However, Cadiz did look pretty strong in this game. They had twice as many shots. The passing was better, even though it was kind of sloppy from both sides. But man, there was a lot of just jumping around, and because look how many. I've never seen this many aerials because I want to be real with you guys. I do not look at stats as much as I have since I started doing this podcast. Maybe you guys have noticed because I talk differently when I'm talking about games that I haven't watched 100%, but 42 aerials for Osasuna, 24 for Cadiz. I've never seen a combined 60-plus aerials in a game. I'm sure that's just teams, tossing it back and forth, just trying to get something going. And on Cadiz's side, they kind of try to stick with them. They did what they had to do, have more possession, pass it better, get more shots. It's just that they didn't bring their shooting boots in this one. They only had 3 on target. Osasuna had only 6 shots, and 4 of them were on target. So they did what they ultimately needed to do, coming up with the victory, winning 2-0, and starting their season off pretty solid, especially after last season not looking that good. So, strong start for Osasuna. The next game we have Real Betis defeating Alaves 1-0. I expect big things from Real Betis this season. I like their individual quality. They just didn't look that dominant in this game, and they had 58% possession, but I expect even more from them. Those are the kind of expectations I have from them. Especially when you have a guy like Nabil Fekir, you have William Carvalho, I'm probably saying that name so bad. And then bringing in Claudio Bravo, I mean, that's obviously huge for them. But in the end, Real Betis did do well on the defensive end. I mean, they allowed 7 shots, but only 2 were on target. So obviously, Alaves were having a really tough time in terms of getting, really quality shots. But Alaves were really outworking them. They had 23 aerials won to Real Betis 7, and 16 interceptions to Real Betis 7 as well. And that was the biggest issue with Real Betis last season. I never felt like they really put in, they'll put in effort, but they'll usually be outworked by their opponent. In this game, it didn't hurt them. They got the goal by their substitute, Christian Tello, as he came in for Carvalho. And I feel like I'm butchering that name, but I'm sure you guys live for that. You live for Steven just absolutely butchering names on this podcast. But in the end, yes, they did what they needed to do. Started off their season with a victory and, hopefully looking at a European bid this season. Next, we have Villarreal drawing against newly promoted Huescas. Maybe, I don't know if I'm saying that name right, but yes, they drew against Huescas in this match and actually got off to a bad start because they were down 1-0 at halftime to this newly promoted side. And the goal came from Maffeo Becerra for Huesca, and I do not believe they have the kind of goal scoring threats that you would expect from a usual, La Liga side, but they did get that goal, and they looked overall, organized throughout this match. They had 75% pass completion to Villarreal's 86%. There's not that big of a gap there, considering that Villarreal had pretty much twice as much possession as Huesca, but Villarreal were bailed out. They got a penalty kick in the 68th minute to get the draw with Moreno slotting it home. But they should have probably got a victory here. They had 15 shots to Huesca's 10. And, they just did not take care of business. 1-1 draw to start the season. And not the kind of start Villarreal were hoping for. Next, we have Valladolid. Valladolid drawing against Real Sociedad 1-1. And in this match, it was kind of going in Real Sociedad's favor. They had 60% possession to Valladolid's 40%, but they had the same amount of shots. And Real Sociedad actually had 1 less shot on target. And they did get a goal early in the, at least in the first half, a 39th minute goal from Michel. That was assisted by Guardiola. But then right after halftime, they got a goal from, Valladolid got a goal. Wait, what am I talking? No, Real Sociedad, my bad. I messed this up big time. Real Sociedad actually went down in this game early. Valladolid got that goal from Michel, assisted by Guardiola. And then their newly signed player Ronnie Lopez. No. Okay, I messed this up big time. Next, we have Valladolid drawing against Real Sociedad 1-1. And in this game, Real Sociedad looked like they had, they did have more possession. They had 60% to Valladolid's 40%. But you just have to expect more from Real Sociedad. They have more quality up front. And you just needed to see more here. They still needed Oyarzabal. Didn't start in this match. He's still not 100% fit. Once he gets out there, they'll obviously be a little bit better. But they did have Mikel Merino out in the starting lineup, and they still didn't look as good. Obviously, losing Odegaard was big time for them because he did a lot of creative stuff for them. But you still need to do better than that. Obviously, losing Llorente, like I've already mentioned, to Leeds United is going to really hurt. But they need to score more goals. That's how they're going to win these games. They got way more quality up front, and they need to score goals. If they don't, it's going to be a long season for Real Sociedad. Next, we have Granada versus Athletic Club, and my God, Granada defeating Athletic Club 2-0 and taking absolute advantage of the little chances that they had. I mean, they had 40% possession to Athletic Club's 60%, and they only had 4 shots, 2 on target. Obviously, both of those going by the goalkeeper for Athletic Club, and Athletic Club had 9 shots and only 2 on target. But, I mean, again, Granada just surprising people early on in this season. Obviously winning this game and just looking overall pretty solid. I mean, they weren't dominant because they don't have a lot of quality. They play well as a team, and that's ultimately what got them over the hump in this game. Last in match week 1, we had Eibar versus Celta Vigo, and that one ended in a goalless draw. This was a pretty even matchup. I mean, both teams were playing very sloppy. I mean, Eibar only had 8 shots. Celta Vigo had 6, although 3 of them were on target to Eibar's just 1 on target. These teams barely got over 50% pass percentage, and just overall, this was a very, very sloppy match. There was, just balls getting tossed back and forth. Look, this is another game that had 60-plus aerials. 141 for Eibar, 26 for Celta Vigo. So these two teams were just flinging it across, just trying to get something going, and it just did not work for them. And that's why it ended in a 0-0 draw. Celta Vigo, I did not expect them to, look this bad. I mean, they do have Iago Aspas, but he's on the bench, right? Or no, I don't even think they... No, yeah, I think they do have Iago Aspas. Yeah, they have Iago Aspas. They have Nolito, Brais Mendes. I mean, they have some quality up top, so they need to take advantage of it and, actually score goals. Because if they're going to play like this, it looks really bad on their part. So next, we're going to now talk about match week 2, and Villarreal defeated Eibar 2-1. This time, Eibar had a little bit more offensive, quality up front. They had 12 shots and 4 on target, but Villarreal just looked way more organized in the opposing final third. They had 14 shots, 8 on target. Their pass percentage was a bit better. Their aerial, they were better in the aerials. They were better in clearances, so their defense was more effective. And ultimately got this victory, and, they needed it. If they're getting a draw in the first week, getting a win here, kind of, especially against another side that's not, up to par with them, you just, especially after, drawing to Huesca in the first week, they needed to, reassure people that they're still going to be one of the top sides in La Liga, and this did that. Next, we had Getafe defeating Osasuna 1-0, and this was a big time game. Osasuna, not looking good in the first week, and even though they did win 2-0 over Cadiz, they just 2-0 over a newly promoted side isn't the strongest start. But then Getafe, they did what they had to do. They weren't. This was their first game of the season because their first game against Real Madrid was postponed, and they start their season off with a 1-0 victory. Can't really ask for more than that. Celta Vigo came out on top against Valencia, and this is the Valencia side I have been looking for. Losing to Celta Vigo, who looked like they couldn't do anything the week before against Eibar, absolutely dominated them in this game. Even though the possession was pretty even, they had 23 shots to Valencia's 9. Pass percentage was about the same, but just overall, Celta Vigo just looked, much more effective in that final third, and they got, what they needed. Iago Aspas got 2 goals, and like I was saying in the first game, that's what they needed in that first game against Eibar, which they did not get. And in this one, he came through and got them the 2 goals, which, as always, saves them and got them those 2 points. And now, they got 4 points in 2 matches. I mean, that's solid. That's a solid start. Next, we had a game between 2 newly promoted sides, Cadiz and Huesca. And although Cadiz did lose in their first game and Huesca drew, Cadiz is the one that came out on top here, 2-0. And they did not look like the better side. But, in the long run of the game. I mean, they had 29% possession to Huesca's 71%. Their pass percentage was way down, but they worked on defense. They had 17 interceptions to Huesca's 4, and ultimately took advantage of their, just made sure that with their 6 shots, they got 4 on target. Huesca only had 4 shots and 1 on target. Doing what they needed to do, getting those 2 goals, and starting off their their new season in La Liga with a win and a loss. I mean, anytime these newly promoted sides can get a win, they'll take them, even if it's against, another newly promoted side. And it was Negrado, what was his name? Negrero coming through, and then you also had at the end of the game Pombo coming through, getting that 2-0 victory and pretty much sealing the deal in the 83rd minute. So, yeah, that was a really solid win from Cadiz. Huesca, they need, a draw and a loss to start their season. It did not look good against 2 sides that, aren't really that good. They did lose to, they drew against Villarreal, and that was solid. You gotta enjoy that. But to then follow that up with a loss to Cadiz, you need to show better than that. You just do. Next, we have Granada versus Alaves, and Granada once again winning 2-1. And they got off to a super hot start with Soldado scoring in the 7th minute, and then Joselu, who is probably the best player on Alaves, getting that goal right back in the 22nd minute. Goes into halftime tied 1-1. And in the 79th minute, Machis gets Granada that second goal, gives them the win. And honestly, Granada deserved this victory. They've overall played better than Alaves. And they now start the season off 2 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses. And look to shut me up, as I have them as a mid-table side, even though, they were newly promoted last year and completely surprised people. I believe they finished like 9th or 8th, and I did not expect that to happen again. But, this start is huge for them. 2 goals in both of their games, and they just look good. They look like a really good team. Next, we have Real Betis defeating Valladolid 2-0. And they looked better in this game. They had 56% possession, 16 shots to Valladolid's 9, and just pretty much in every facet of this game, defense, in the midfield, in attack, they just looked better. And they got their goals. They got their goal. One from Fekir in the 10th minute, and then another one in the 18th minute from Carvalho. And they just look solid and did what they needed to do to get this win. And then last, but certainly not least, we had Real Madrid playing their first game of the new season against Real Sociedad and drawing. A 0-0 scoreless draw for the title winners from last season. Real Madrid should have probably won this game. They had 16 shots to Real Sociedad 6, but only 4 of those 16 shots were on target for Madrid. So, they look kind of unorganized. You expect more from a team of that quality. And, they had all their guys. They had Vinicius Jr., they have Rodrigo, they had Benzema, Odegaard was in the starting lineup, Modric, Kroos. All the guys that they were there. And it didn't make a difference. Big time draw for Real Sociedad, and they'll need to rely heavily, clearly, on that defense to really get them over the hump, because Oyarzabal started in this game. Same thing with Marino, just like in the last game, and it still didn't matter. They still could not get a goal. I mean, not that they were expected to against Real Madrid, which is one of the best defenses in the world, but still. 2 draws, or, what they have? Yeah, 2 draws to start their season. Real Madrid got a draw to start their season, and don't expect that from them. That's going to wrap it up for this third segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be giving you guys my top 10 wonder kids in the world.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I pretty much did a recap of the last 2 weeks of La Liga and just kind of where each team stands in the table. And now we're going to be talking about the top 10 wonder kids in the world. Before I start, I just want to set a couple, I guess, just parameters for this list. I am going to only include players that are under 20 years old. That means we won't be seeing Jadon Sancho, Erling Haaland, Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Phil Foden, Sandro Tonali, etc. We won't be seeing those people on this list. So let's get right into it. Starting with number 10, Callum Hudson-Odoi, the 19-year-old forward/midfielder from Chelsea. Last year he had 33 matches played, 13 starts, and he had 3 goals and 6 assists. Hudson-Odoi, I actually kind of feel bad for this young kid because, he's clearly a really talented kid. He's a great passer. He had just under 1 key pass per game. He's really good with the ball at his feet. He had 1.4 dribbles per game, and overall is just a really good talent. He does suffer a little bit in aerial duels. He's not that good at that, but usually as a young kid, that's not what they work on, especially when they're attackers. They usually look to score, at least get their teammates involved. But the reason I feel bad is because he's in a Chelsea side that has added so much talent, and he's got young talent ahead of him, but they're obviously already a little grown. Like, you have Mason Mount, he's over 20 years old. You have Pulisic, who's turning 22 now, and he's kind of out of place now. And with Kai Havertz coming in, Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech, he's gonna primarily be off the bench. And when you're at this age, this very important age that you need a lot of time, which he did get last season, 33 matches played, 13 starts, that's solid. You just need to see more. You need to see more time and more starts, just overall more minutes. And he's not going to get that at Chelsea. So I expect him to get loaned out, or if he does play the full season, be played sparingly, primarily off the bench and probably in cup matches. But overall, Callum Hudson-Odoi is just a very solid talent, and he beats out some pretty tough, big-time names like Gabriel Martinelli and Takefusa Kubo. So Callum Hudson-Odoi comes in at number 10, and now at number 9, we have Lee Kang-in, the 19-year-old midfielder from Valencia who has broken in, at least this season now, he has broken into the first team and will be expected to pretty much start most of those matches. Last year, he had 24 matches played, 6 starts, and had 2 goals. He had a 79% pass percentage of about 13 passes. And overall, when you watch him play, he's really great with the ball at his feet. Can really hold onto the ball. Like, he has a really small frame, but players can rarely take him off the ball, and that is a very good skill to have. He is a great passer, great cross. He's great with his crossing, and he has a really strong work rate. Like, you'll rarely see him not hustling for the ball. And, of course, I don't even have to say his dribbling is amazing, and usually you'll see him taking those set-piece kicks. Not when there's a chance at goal. Usually you'll see one of the, veteran players on the team taking one of those. But when it comes to corner kicks, set-piece crosses, Lee Kang-in is that guy. And he already has 2 assists to start this season. So, keep an eye out for this kid. He's going to be lighting it up in La Liga for years to come. Next, at number 8, we have Bukayo Saka of Arsenal, that 19-year-old midfielder who has impressed so much at Arsenal. Probably one of the best young talents I've seen come out of Arsenal in a long time. Last year, he had 38 matches played, 29 starts. And last year, he was 18 years old. To break out into the first team of such a big-time club like that, and not only break out onto the team, but contribute in a big way. He had 4 goals, 11 assists, 44% of his 34 shots were on target, had 78% pass completion of about 28 passes, over 1 key pass and 1 dribble per game, and he contributed on defense with just under a tackle per game. Some of his strengths, he's a great shooter, he's great with the ball at his feet, in terms of dribbling, and he gets his players in the right positions. And he's extremely quick, which is usually the case for most of these young kids. Having so much energy, but that is the case for Bukayo Saka. He's a huge-time player for Arsenal and will most definitely start pretty much every game, for Arsenal for the foreseeable future. And I expect big things from this guy. He was actually a late addition to this list because I was thinking so much about Gabriel Martinelli. I had him like in the 10th spot, 9th spot, but then I was like, wait a second. I completely forgot about Saka, who was already broken onto the first team. Martinelli is still trying to work his way into that. But, man, and Martinelli might have more potential, but right now Saka is definitely better than him and does pretty much everything for Arsenal. Does a little bit of everything for Arsenal in the attack. Next, we have Reinier of Real Madrid, the 18-year-old attacking midfielder coming in at number 7. Did not, as usual for most young prospects coming out of Real Madrid, did not get a lot of playing time, only had 15 matches played, 8 starts. He did, however, have 6 goals and 2 assists, 79% of his 15 passes, completed 79% of his 15 passes, and is just a really, really complete offensive player. He's more often than not been compared to Kaká, and that's big-time comparisons. And these are not just, from analysts. These are players giving him that kind of comparison. He has been loaned out to Borussia Dortmund, and I do think that's obviously a good move for him. When you're moving to a team that loves to play young talent, and he'll obviously get the opportunity to shine. They did get an option in that contract to add an extra year on that loan, which they'll probably use because, you got a lot of guys there like Giovanni Reina, Jude Bellingham, who surprisingly did not make this list. They're also in the honorable mentions, I have to say. But, this kid can shoot from anywhere. Finishing is certainly probably his biggest strength. He's also really great at holding on to the ball, and his passing is very, very underrated. For Flamenco 2 seasons ago, he had just under a key pass and a dribble per game. And in tackling, I mean, he works on the defensive end as well. So he's a box-to-box midfielder, does not care about anything. I mean, some of the shots that this kid takes is just like real. I can't say the word off the podcast, but he's got it. He's got that X factor. And that's why he comes in at number 7. At number 6, I might say his name wrong, so bear with me. We have Mohamed Hatarin from PSV, the 18-year-old midfielder who has established himself in the first team. He had 28 matches played last season, 26 starts, 4 goals and 6 assists. 43% of his 67 shots were on target, and he passes the ball pretty well. 71% of his 10 passes per game were completed. Now, Hatarin, he is an excellent dribbler. You know, he gets the passes into his teammates. He gets them in the right positions. I mean, 6 assists for PSV last season. The only problem with him is that when he gets into those final thirds, he's not the best finisher because he had a lot of opportunities last season. So to come away with, 4 goals is still excellent for an 18-year-old. Don't get me wrong. But I can definitely see him getting better in that area and, you know, turning into a much more complete player. But from what he's shown and, you know, just his IQ, his ability to, you know, play better in, when he gets into the final third and actually get his teammates involved, his crossing is absolutely top-notch. And I expect him to get a big-time move sooner rather than later, although it would probably be beneficial to him to stay at PSV at least for another year or 2 so that he can, you know, mature a little more before he makes that big-time move to another club. And that is exactly why he comes in at number 6. Now we're going to be entering a different tier here. These are like the top wonderkins in the world. You've obviously heard of these coming up. I mean, you know, the ones behind, you've probably heard of some of them if you're a big-time soccer player. But these, if you haven't heard of them, you need to start paying attention. With number 5 being Mason Greenwood of Manchester United, the 18-year-old attacking midfielder / forward. He played in 49 matches last year and 26 starts. He had 17 goals and 3 assists. He completed 86% of his 15 passes and was just absolutely unleashed by old Gunnar Solskjaer, which I would say was probably his best, the best thing that Solskjaer did last season was unleashing Greenwood onto the world. He was a 17-year-old when he first came on, and to just absolutely explode onto the scene. He scored for them in the Europa League first, and was, I believe, one of the youngest players. Or he was scored in the fourth. This is a crazy stat that in the 4,000th straight game that an academy product has played for for Manchester United, he scored. And I think, that obviously Solskjaer was, talking big time about that, and how Greenwood is a big time part of this club and the future of this club. But he can do it all. He's an amazing attacker. The only thing I see problem with him is that he's not great at aerial duels, which as an attacker, as a forward, he should be good at that. But that's usually the case for young players. They haven't really grown into their bodies yet. They need to get a lot bigger, a lot stronger, and that will come with time. Now, since he's not a striker, he does need to get better with his passing. He's not a terrible passer. Completing 86% of your 15 passes, but his crossing is not where it needs to be. Once that comes around and he, gets that into his game, I expect him to be higher up on this list. He definitely showed up the most for his club last season. If you're talking about out of everybody on this list, where would he go off of just production? He'd be second on this list. Maybe third, but I'd probably put him second. But that's exactly why he comes in at number 5. Number 4, we have my favorite player on this list, Eduardo Camavinga of Rennes. The 17-year-old defensive midfielder was an absolute monster last season and will be even bigger this season and, for years to come. I mean, this kid's going to just absolutely explode onto the scene. I hope he stays in Liga for a few more years. I mean, he's only 17 years old. He was 16 last year, and he was showing up PSG. Just absolutely showing them up. That was his best game of the season last year when he absolutely dominated PSG's midfield. He had 36 matches played, 31 starts last year, 1 goal and 3 assists. He averaged 4 tackles per game. That's easily his best, ability, like his biggest strength. And on top of that, it's his IQ. Notice that you do not see another defensive midfielder I'll spoil it for you. There's not another defensive midfielder on this list. The next 3 coming up are not defensive midfielders. They are mainly attackers. And that's the thing. Like when you are a young kid and you're trying to make your way onto your senior team, your first team, it is very rare for a defensive midfielder at such a young age to be able to make that kind of leap. Because the kind of technical ability, IQ, and poise it takes to man that spot is huge and something you never see in a young kid. Camavinga has that all, and he is going to be huge for years to come. He's a great passer. 88% of his 39 passes were completed, completes 2.5 long balls per game, and he can create for himself. Just under a dribble per game, and it'll just get better and better as the years come. I know Manchester United are eyeing him. There's a couple teams eyeing him for good reason. I mean, he's big time. This kid's big time. But I want him to stay in Liga. Obviously, I don't get what I want all the time. But Camavinga, this kid's going to be one of the best defensive midfielders in the world for years to come. Make sure you guys keep an eye on him. Next, at number 3, we're in the top 3 now. We have Rodrigo of Real Madrid. This kid's broken out onto the first team. I possibly see him as one of the top selections for Zinedine Zidane this season. And to say that for a 19-year-old in Real Madrid is huge. That's why Vinicius Jr., if I was talking about 20-year-olds, he would have been on this list. But, this kid had 26 matches played last year, 16 starts, had 7 goals and 3 assists. 59% of his 20, even though it was only 27 shots, 59% of them were on target. So this kid's a sniper. He does it all. 1.0 key passes per game, 1.5 dribbles per game. 84% of his 25 passes were completed. And, he plays really well. He loves to dribble the ball. He cuts inside extremely well. And he's really good at passing. He's just like, he's one of the most complete players on this list. And is going to show it a lot for Real Madrid this upcoming season. I hope he gets a lot of work. Not sure if, once everyone comes back healthy and fit, he'll be, a first choice player, but he'll definitely be coming off the bench. And if they stick with this whole 5 sub rule, he'll definitely get a lot of time. So Rodrigo coming in at number 3 for big reasons. He's been, one of the biggest prospects for a long, long time. And Real Madrid picking him up is just huge. And the fact that he's already starting for them in this La Liga season just goes to show what kind of plans they have for him. Next, we have Ansu Fati of Barcelona, the 17-year-old forward. This kid is the youngest. Oh, no, Camavinga's the youngest, but it's kind of crazy for 2 17-year-olds to be in the top 4 on this kind of list. The future is bright for football. It usually always is. And last year he played 33 matches, 15 starts, and he had 8 goals and 1 assist for Barcelona. He was the youngest scorer. He has so many records for Barcelona. Records that you would expect Messi to have for years. Ansu Fati has become the youngest player to score for Barcelona in La Liga, in Champions League, you name it, he's got it. And that's one of the reasons why Ansu Fati is number 2 on this list. Over Rodrigo, over Camavinga. Ansu Fati raised his level of play. He had, on a big scale, big time games, he raised his level of play. He was one of Barcelona's best players in the Champions League, and was just, and to say that for a 17-year-old, I mean, Barcelona know what they have. They know what they have here. They are thanking their lucky stars that they beat Real Madrid to Ansu Fati's signing, and he's going to be probably, I mean, they tried using him as a left back for a little while, but he plays better up top. I mean, his finishing is one of the best. He has so many wonder goals. Like, just his long shots are unbelievable, and he's a great passer. He loves to do layoff passes for his teammates, and he's more of a short pass type of player. His crossing isn't that good, which is why I don't like him in that fullback spot. But we'll see how they use him in this upcoming season. And number 1, we have Alphonso Davies. I mean, did you expect anyone else? Like, honestly, did you expect anybody else at this number 1 spot? Alphonso Davies is still 19 years old. It's crazy to even think. But he will be turning 20 soon. He turns 20 in, I think, November. I know I checked. And so he does make this list. And, I mean, what can I say? I mean, this guy was huge for Bayern Munich's treble last season. Huge to them, just being super successful in the Champions League. He had 3 goals, 9 assists in his 37 starts. 1.2 key passes per game, 2.9 dribbles. And he's super good on defense. Like, for a guy that good on offense, for him to average 2.4 tackles, 1.1 interceptions and clearances as well is just ridiculous. And right off the bat, the one thing I got to mention about Alphonso Davies is the fact that his pace takes him to a whole nother level. Like, it helps him on defense. Usually guys with that kind of pace, they don't have the poise and just what am I trying to say? Technical ability on the defensive end. Like, offensively, they'll do good in terms of, like, passing by guys and making them miss. But on the defensive end, you won't see that. With Alphonso Davies, you get the full package. And I mean, he was like a top 2 fullback in my recent top 10 fullbacks in the world. So I mean, this guy has so many years ahead of him, and the fact that we're already getting this from him is just scary for the world. I mean, for anybody that doesn't have him on their team, which I'm sure Bayern Munich is going to do everything in their power to keep him there forever. But we'll see, man. I mean, huge type of player. Huge. So that's going to wrap it up for this list and this podcast. I know. Hopefully you guys will miss me. And I'll make sure to come back on Saturday. Well, Sunday is when I'll be back. So, as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.